Okay. For life.
Yes, part 3. We're chopping up this. We're chopping it up. We're chopping it up.
It's 3 parts now.
Yeah, it's 3 parts now, right? So let me put my spectacles on for this again, so I can look studious. So yes. Now, like I said in part 2, I called. And when I called, it was as if they were thinking that some foul play was going on. And they called her and specifically spoke to her, and they called me back and they said, hey, we called her and told her and asked her if she has the check at the property. And she said yes. And they gave her ultimatum that the check needs to be mailed out no later than they told her on they spoke to her Monday, told her the check needs to be mailed out no later than Tuesday. So they called me back and they said, okay, it's going to be mailed out. We told her that it needs to be mailed out on Tuesday, and it needs to be sent to you overnight, so it gets there for your first thing tomorrow morning. Wednesday comes now. We're in the second week. Wednesday comes now. Need money, no check. So I called and say, hey, the check did not arrive. Check did not arrive. I waited until the end of the day and I called and told her the check did not arrive. So I told them that I'm going to go to the property, and to make sure that there are no issues, I am going to request a police officer to accompany me to the property, and I'm going to tell the police officer what's going on, so when we go there he can speak on my behalf. And they said, okay, you can go there with the police officer, but go over to Emerald Dunes. That's the property where Tavares is now the property manager. Go over to Emerald Dunes and wait there, and when the police officer comes, he can escort you over to the property. So when the police officer arrived at Emerald Dunes, I walked out. I walked over. The police officer pulled his car because Emerald Dunes was like about the walking distance was like maybe about, I would say, about 100 feet from Cedar Grove's gate to Emerald Dunes gate. And when the police officer came, he pulled up right at Cedar Grove's gate, and I was walking over because I told him how to walk. I left the car over at Emerald Dunes, and the officer accompanied me inside. I explained to him what was going on. He accompanied me inside into the property. I went in the office and I said, hi, Kim. She said, hi, Soshahi. Natalie popped out of her office and she was like, what are you doing here? I said, I came to get my check. The corporate office told me that you have the check here. She said, but I mailed the check out. Right? Oh, sorry. Let me go back a second. I called Kim prior to going there, and Kim told me on Wednesday that the check was still in the desk. So my apologies for not clearing that. The check was still in the desk. So on Thursday, when I went there to retrieve the check with the police officer. So when she popped out of the office. So what are you doing here? I said, I'm here to pick up the check. So the police officer said, hold on. Ma'am, what's your name? She says, Natalie. And she gave her last name, which I'm not going to mention. Do you have his check here? She said, I mailed the check off. And I looked over at Kim, and Kim shook her head and said, that told me that the check was still there, right? So the police officer asked her again, do you have his check here? Because holding on to his check, that is fraud. You can go to jail for that. She said, he should not be here. And she went back in her office and made a call. So when she made a call, the police officer and I there, and he's talking to her and said, ma'am, if you have his check here, give it to him, please, so we can go. Right? She hesitated. She procrastinated. She was just going around, like beating around the bush, going around the bend, not being straight with us. Then another police officer came, right? So the police officer that came there was of my same diaspora, right? The other police officer that she called that came was of Hispanic diaspora, right? So he walked in and he's like, you called the police? She said, yes, I called. And you said that he has a trespass warning on him? And the other police officer looked at him like, you had a trespass on you? I said, I have no clue that I have a trespass on me, right? The corporate office knew I was coming here. I don't think they had a clue that Natalie put a trespass on me, right? So he said, let me verify. So he called. He got the paper from her with a number on it, and he called and he spoke to someone at, I guess, at dispatch or wherever, and they verified and said yes, there was a trespassing on Garth. And he told me to turn around. And I said, how are you going to arrest me? He said, turn around, I'm arresting you. How are you going to arrest me when I came to the property with a police officer? That does not make any sense. How are you going to arrest me? She said, I want him arrested because he should not be here. The other police officer said, I can't do anything. He's arresting you. I said, how are you going to allow him to arrest me when I came here with you? He says, I can't do anything. So the police officer arrested me and walked me outside and put me in the back of his car. Right? Officer, I believe his name was Officer Jimenez or Officer Jimenez or Cortez, or I think it was Officer Cortez. I never really wrote his name down, but it's almost Jimenez or Cortez, I believe. Anyway, let's get back to it. So he went into his seat and he sat down and he started writing things up. And he said, officer, what's your name? And he told me his first name. His first name is Jose. Last name I don't remember, but his first name is Jose. And I said, Jose, think about it. Listen to this story. Natalie, the person that called you to arrest me, she's not being honest. She wanted to have sex with me, and I denied her. She became angry and furious and started bogging me down with her work. So I must do her work and my work. And then she started writing me up because I would not have sex with her. You don't believe me? Go in and ask Kim, or we can go over to Cedar Grove and ask Tavares, because he's very aware of it. Right? Very aware of it. She trespassed because she held on to my check for 2 weeks. The corporate office told her many times to give the check to me, mail the check to me. The check is still sitting in the office today, right? And I'm sitting in the back of your car. Now, does that make sense? I came here with a police officer to retrieve my check because it's here. Kim confirmed that it's here. She confirmed it with me, and I confirmed it with the corporate office. They told her on Monday to mail it out on Tuesday. Wednesday, it's still here. Thursday, it's still here. And I'm now in the back of your car. This is why I'm you've arrested me because she trespassed me because she didn't want me to come there to get my check. Right? He says, really? I said, yes. I'm not lying. You think I'm lying? I just told you that you can verify with everyone I just told you to verify it with. He says, you know what? This sounds kind of weird. And I said, officer, I have a newborn. I have to pay bills. You can understand you're a man, so you have to cover bills. That's why I'm here. And that's why I came with a police officer. If I intended to do anything of harm, anything bad, anything nefarious, I would have just come by myself. I wouldn't have called and asked an officer to escort me to the property. Now, does that make sense? He said, logically, what you're explaining to me makes sense. I'm not going to take you to jail because I hear it in your voice. I hear you speak, I hear you explain, and you're very clear. This sounds odd to me. So I'm going to release you on your own recognizance, right? And he said, give me a moment. Finished writing up some stuff. He opened the back door, let me out of the car, and said, this is your acknowledgement that you'll show up in court. So I had to sign the paper, my acknowledgement, I will show up to court. Okay. They set the court date for 6 weeks. So I had 6 weeks from the date I was arrested and released on my own recognizance to show up to court. So I showed up to 6 week comes, nervous. We had a family attorney, still do, a family attorney, and I explained everything to him, and he accompanied me to court. And when we went to court, I walked in, I waited for the judge to call. The judge called my name, and I went up to the judge. And the judge says, is the state ready? Right? And they said, yes, we are. And they start looking for their file. And in the meantime, while they're looking for their file, the judge asked me, hey, you care to explain what happened, why you're here? Because you look like a clean-cut young man. You don't look like you deserve to be here. What happened? So I started explaining to the judge what took place. And the judge said, really? Really? And the judge was just listening to everything. And the stenographer and everybody that was there was just like, they were amazed that that took place. So the judge told me to pause, right? And then when the judge told me to pause, the judge turned to the state and says, did you find the file? They said, no, Judge, we thought we had the file here. We can't find the file. So you're telling me that this young man was arrested, he was given a time to be in court, he's on time, he presented his case, he explained what happened, and you don't have the file to back up what or go against or back up or whatever his claim is, right? So, well, Judge, I'm sorry, we thought we had the file. Can we get an extension? The judge says. Now, I just explained to you that this young man seemingly explained himself very clear. He came with an attorney, and that means to say if he went out of his way to come with an attorney, he came because he knew that something was not going to happen to him, because he came with an attorney. Normally, a person would come expecting a public defendant or by themselves. He came with an attorney, and you don't have your case, your file here. Absolutely not. I will not grant an extension. And the judge turned to me and said, Garth, thank you for coming. Thank you for explaining what took place. I'm sorry that took place. I wish I had something to do with it because you would be here and she would be here. She would be standing in front of me explaining why she did what she did. But unfortunately, the law don't work that way. Right? So, thank you for coming. You're free to go. Case dismissed. The state said, Judge, we just need more time. No. Case dismissed. Garth, thank you. You can go home. And the case was dropped. Right? Naturally, I was very happy. I was relieved because for 6 weeks, I was in turmoil inside. Right? Eventually, she did. I mailed the check. I did receive the check. Right? And I would get calls from Kim, telling me how horrible Natalie became. Or Natalie did not know how to do her work. Because I was there, I was covering for her by doing her assignments, by doing her reports. So she was looking good because I was the one doing her reports. But after I left, Natalie could not do her reports. That wasn't my concern, but I was told. And Tavares used to tell me how it was. He would get these report from Kim. Or Kim would always tell him how she can't work there anymore. Eventually, Kim got transferred from Cedar Groves to Emerald Dunes. Right? Because she couldn't work with Natalie anymore. And naturally, over time, not too long, Natalie was no longer at the property. How unfortunate. Right? And eventually, Jeffrey was no longer with the company. How unfortunate. Right? They terminated me because Natalie was sexually harassing me, and I reported it. Now, as I said in episode 1, us as a man, we're ridiculed, laughed at. It's a clown world for us when these things happen because it's kind of taboo for us as men to talk about our experiences. But that's something that I went through. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with a movie that talked about a man that was harassed at work. And I'm telling you, I watched that movie. And while watching that movie, it was like deja vu for me. Right? And many men out there have experienced what I've experienced and are unwilling to talk about it because they know that they'll be ridiculed, laughed at, made fun of, told that they shouldn't worry about it because they should be happy that a man is getting this kind of attention from a woman. This movie I'm talking about was released in 1994, years before. So when it happened to me, it was kind of like deja vu. This movie is called Disclosure, right? I believe the actors are Michael Douglas and Demi Moore, right? Demi Moore being the antagonist, and Michael Douglas. That was me. That was my real life movie. Natalie I won't say her last name, was the Demi Moore. And I was the Michael Douglas. My real life experience of the real life version of disclosure. And on that note, everyone, the final episode in my story. I feel like I just released everything. I wish we could have done it in one take, but things didn't work out that way. But I have it out, story time, told of my experience. Garth Soshahi, Clyde Hyder, Think and Say podcast, signing off.
I've been sitting here thinking about all the things you do for me, how you make me feel. Been wondering if it's the same for you, but when you're not around, I lose my mind, 'cause you keep it like a secret. Why won't you